My name is Wanyanya. I'm an artist manager. I run a business called Ngomano Show, where we represent artists, we curate events. The founder of Jacaranda Music Festival. I was managing Dr. Mtukudzi for the last 4 years up until his passing, and I've worked with artists like Victor Kunonga was his manager as well, and Brian K. Working with Dr. Mtukudzi, it was something, I wouldn't say it was a dream come true. I've always admired his work, and I always been involved in his work indirectly or directly. I don't know how you want to put it. I was not in the forefront as far as management is concerned with his work, but it's not. I've always worked with him, more like consultancy. But then there was a need for me to manage him at some point, and then we sat down, and then I took on the job to be his manager. And yeah, it was something amazing. It was a learning curve. I learned a lot more than I gave what I knew already, but it was more an educational time for me, because he's an amazing teacher. Teaching was something that he held very highly. He was very he realized that teaching is the only way that we can grow. And teaching is not necessarily curriculums and textbooks and things like that. Teaching, he used to teach while you're having coffee, while you're traveling, while you're in a car, and that kind of thing. He taught life. He taught hunu. He taught how to do business and things like that. So I learned quite a lot from him. Yeah. I wasn't really keen on managing him, to be honest, because he's such a big name and such a big act. I felt like I wouldn't be able to do justice to already such an established artist. So I was kind of like holding back, and I'm thinking, no, I don't think this, I can handle this one. I can do everything else, but this could be a big task for me. But after a couple of meetings with him, he managed to convince me to to take him on. And I did, and I don't regret it. It's something that I hold dear to this day. And I guess it's I had to be the man to do the job for him or work with him in that period up until the time that we lost him. So, but we had a really good 4 years, working together. Yeah. Wow, managing him it involved everything. You look at pushing his songs, and most of the times you really didn't do much as far as that is concerned, pushing the music, because the music had a life of its own, or the music has a life of its own. His music in particular has a life of its own. So when he releases a song, when he releases an album, it kind of, the minute that he says it's done and we put it out there, it kind of did its own thing. So we just were there to just support and give it direction. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of point the right direction to, okay, we want to go this way, we want to do that. But otherwise, the music did its own job of marketing itself. His music doesn't need a lot of push from anybody, even himself. When you've got a Tuku song, you've got a Tuku song. It does it develops its own life. So that kind of work, and the tours, festivals, birthdays, weddings. So all that, every single performance has preparation, every single performance has logistics, every single performance would involve traveling, so we'd have to make travel arrangements. So in Zimbabwe, as a manager, you're a road manager, you're a stylist, you're everything. You anywhere else in the world, all those things would have different people that do that handle that. So yeah, managing an artist in Zimbabwe involves everything, all that they in one individual. So you have to be able to to work under pressure, you know, always on your toes, making sure that your artist, you know, is at their optimum, you know, to do whatever they need to do. The one song that I'm very happy or proud to have had some, involvement in is his collaboration that he did with. Actually, it's not his song. It was a song by Berita, and it features Yuma Sekela. So that was the first time that Yuma Sekela and Oliver Mtukudzi actually were on a recorded piece of music, but it wasn't their songs. You'd think that they should have recorded one of, you know, either Yuma Sekela song with Tuku or Tuku on, you know, on featuring Yuma Sekela, but it was a song by Berita that featured both of them. I still love the song, you know. So yeah, so that's one of my favorites. And then the other work is, I love his collaboration again, mostly collaborations. I love his collaboration with James Sakala, the young artist from Zambia. Very, very, very versatile artist, amazing young man. He did a song with him as well, and then we actually attempted to shoot a music video. Footage is out there. We'll probably edit it and bring out that video. But yeah, that song also holds some very good, memorable memories with that. Yeah, and then the last one, I would say we did a concert in Cape Town. So that was his last performance in Cape Town. It was a production that we did, and we recorded some of that performance as well on DVD. We included some guys from Zimbabwe. We had Brian K, we had Pro Beats, we had Silent that came along for that particular show. Pretty special, you know. Nzo was very big into working with young artists and making sure that the young artists get an opportunity as much as possible on the same stages that he would get, you know, invited to perform it. So if he had an opportunity to bring someone on stage, he would bring one of the Zim young artists, and that was something special. I enjoyed that as well. Yeah. The recording with Neria was one of Mr. Klabalala's last recordings, because he got sick after that. We shot the video in 2018, the beginning of 2018, the music video. I'm sure you've seen it. We shot it after doing a festival. We played at a festival in Durban, and then we shot the music video in Durban as well. So 2018 was when the video was recorded, but the song itself was recorded in 2016. The remix for Neria with Dr. Mtukudzi, and that song is actually going to be on Abiyangu, which is the album that's going to come out now, which is a collaboration album with compilation album with a whole bunch of different artists, from African artists. Yeah. So he worked a lot with Ladysmith, Yuma Sekela, Yvonne Chaka Chaka. He worked with everybody, big, small, you name them. He managed to work with them. Yeah. For me, working with the different artists, when we do collaborations or playing on the same stage and things like that, it was work, you know. And I guess for a lot of people, when they see these big artists, they are big acts, you know, they're big out there. But then when we're at work, we concentrate on the work. We make sure that we deliver good products, whether it's stage, whether it's videos, or it's radio, or whatever. For me, my job is to make sure that the artists are comfortable and they do what they need to do. And most of them are like super professional when it comes to their work. They take their work seriously, you know. They're always on time. They always make sure they present themselves very well. You know, when it's time to work, it's time to work. So their professionalism for me is what sticks out the most as we interacted with them, and they don't take it, you know, lightly. No, it's just entertainment. Yes, our job is entertainment, and we are in a space where people are having fun, they're dancing, they're drinking, and that kind of thing. But it doesn't mean that we take it lightly and present very lukewarm presentations or productions. Everything is super professional. Everything has to be on time. People have to, you know, do whatever they need to do properly. So professionalism is very high, you know, when you go out there and I think it's something that's admirable. Yeah. I worked on, I think, maybe 4 music videos with him, which was quite a lot, because before he hadn't done a lot of music videos, before I started working with him. So we did the Neria one, we did the one that features Yuma Sekela. We shot that here after Yuma Sekela passed away. We did another one called Matope, which is not out yet. Did a music video. So when we're shooting all those music videos, he was very involved in the concepts, in kind of creating the ideas of what he wants to portray visually, and then he would then give the responsibility to the directors for them to try and put their creativity into action. So you really wouldn't interfere too much in the direction, but in coming up with the concepts, he would be involved with that, so that at least he understands what we want to do and what we want to portray, and the kind of message we want to put through visuals. But then he would let the directors do the job of then directing the video, and then also the edit afterwards. A lot of people now these days, they're not listening to music as much as they're watching music. So music videos are really critical in today's entertainment scene for music. It's key that we get a lot more people involved, a lot more people that have the freedom to express themselves through the video, to complement what an artist would have done in creating a very good song. So it's really important that we let the video directors also play their part in expressing themselves and showing their creativity in that aspect of creating a big picture and completing the circle in making music, and making it work. Yeah. Okay, I was not really involved in the artistic side of his work, if at all. I would hardly go to rehearsals, and I would hardly go in studio to watch him work in that regard. So I'm not the correct person to answer that question. The band, the band members are probably the best people to answer that question, as to the creation, to the process that he had when he was writing or when they were making music. That was really not something that I felt I needed to get myself involved, because he was an established artist. There really wasn't much that I could give input to. All I needed to do was to make sure that he had the time to create, and he had the time to get in the studio, he had the time to rehearse with his band, and that kind of thing. So I think that is something that you can speak to, like the engineers that he worked with in the studio, the young artists that he used to work with at Pakarepaya. They are probably more well informed as in the process of coming up with a song, also process of recording a song, process of mixing and mastering and things like that. Yeah. He took lots of time to spend with his guitar. So depending on how much time we are staying in a particular place, that would determine how much time he will also spend working, personally, or personal practice time with his guitar. So sometimes we'd get to a city or a place in the morning, or we arrive at night, spend the night, and then in the morning we do sound check, and then we get back to the hotel, rest a little bit, and then perform in the evening. So usually that rest time, when everybody gets free time in their hotel room and whatever, that's when you would take 30 minutes to an hour of him just strumming on his guitar and practicing. And for somebody that had been playing for such a long time, to also still put aside time to practice and perfect the guitar playing or the singing and stuff like that, you'd think, okay, I know it all now, I don't need to do it. But then he still took time out to make sure that he perfected his act and what he used to do on his guitar. So it's something that's commendable up to the last minute before you get on stage. He would spend time on his guitar and prepare. Wow, there are a lot of songs. There are a lot of songs, but I'll just tell you one song that is important to me. Not because it's musically perfect or anything. I think it's more the lyrics. The song is Ramangwana Rirongere. That's kind of my song from Dr. Mtukudzi, because it talks about preparation. It talks about us as a people. We need to think of tomorrow in whatever we do, whether it's in business, in personal life, as a nation, as a continent. We need to think about tomorrow the same way that we spoke about having resources for other people that are wanting to get into the industry. That's thinking about tomorrow. That's planning for the future, and we need to be very intentional about it. So that song is kind of like my soundtrack, and it's and I'm super keen on making sure that our tomorrow is very well prepared, and we can only enjoy today because of how we planned today yesterday, or how we plan tomorrow today, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of like my song. But if you want to get into more songs, wow, we could be here all day. But that's the one song that I would say, Kuti, is kind of like my track, and I live by that song. Wow, I lost count. I lost count how many times we toured. All I can say is I got a lot of passports. I had to get new passports all the time, so I wouldn't be able to tell you how many times we toured, and it was a lot of traveling, and it used to get tiring at times, and the only people that you band with is the band and Mdara. So because we spent a lot of time together on a flight, in a hotel room, on stage, in a bus, in a car, going to a gig, coming from a gig, you tend to be very, very close, and you tend to have, to lean on each other a lot. So the most memorable thing, I wouldn't say, is not the places or the things that we did in those places. I think the most memorable thing for me was getting to know the team that I worked with. And not only Dr. Mtukudzi, but the young guys that were the band members. I really, really appreciated working with them, and I enjoyed their company. I enjoyed learning from them. I enjoyed the dedication, and I really appreciate the dedication to Tuku music, and how they loved working with him, and seeing how they were so keen on making sure that they protected his image and they protected his sound. So that's the most memorable thing for me, is the fact that I got a chance to know these people on a very intimate level. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a concert that stands out, because the way he looked at every performance was a weird way, which is not what you're supposed to do. He had a different way of doing it. What is supposed to happen when you get to a festival? For instance, we booked to perform in Uganda. The festival booker would say, okay, we need a list of the songs you're going to perform. You've got 30 minutes, you've got an hour, you've got 45 minutes. So can you tell us how many the songs you're going to perform within that space of time? And Dr. Mtukudzi could never give me a list. So I always used to have an issue with the people that are putting on the show, because I could never give him a list, because he would never give me a list. He didn't have one. So the band didn't have a list. So there was never a time where there's a song list. If ever you watched Oliver Mtukudzi perform, every single song he played was off the top of his head. There was never a list where you would, unless it's a live DVD recording where it's like that. But otherwise, any other gig or any other show, every song that he would play, it's not like he planned it. He would just play one song after the other from the top of his head. So every single show was different. So because every single show was different, he believed in getting energy and getting inspiration from the crowd. So if he played a certain song and you were at that particular concert, it's probably because of you. It's not because of him. It's not because he planned to say, okay, he came and said, okay, I'm going to play Neri, I'm going to play Todi, I'm going to play Tozeza Baba, I'm going to play, that kind of thing. He never had a list. So what I then decided to do was to avoid war with people that would have booked us. I would come up with a list of my own. So when they ask me for a list, I'll just give them random songs. And then I'll give them, once the show, and then when he performs, I'll write the songs down as he's performing. Then I'll go back to them and say, okay, I need to change the list I gave you. So then I get the actual songs now, and then I give them the correct list. I found that was the best way for me to be able to to work around that problem, because he really believed in giving a different experience every single time, but based on what the audience wants, he would feed on what the audience is giving him. Then he would say, okay, now I need to do this song and that song. But obviously there were certain songs that he can't miss of any performance, like Neria, for instance, and Todi. Those were songs that, depending on where and which part of the world we're at, those are songs that you can't do a show and not perform. So so I can't pick out a show and say this one stands out the most and this one stands out the least in that kind of thing. But he was that kind of person. Particularly those two, Yuma Segela and Dr. Mtukudzi, they were very influential in my life, as far as music is concerned, as far as what I do today is concerned. Yuma Segela, I met him 12 years ago through Dr. Mtukudzi, because Yuma Segela had landed in Zimbabwe without warning from South Africa, and he was coming to spend some time with Dr. Mtukudzi, and Dr. Mtukudzi wasn't here. He had gone on tour to the States. So I was designated to look after him. So I spent 6 days with him in Zimbabwe, in Harare, and that was the first time I met him, and that was the first time I had any interaction with him. And after that, we were inseparable. He became very much part of my life as much as Dr. Mtukudzi was. So Dr. Mtukudzi was my sekuru by marriage. So my uncle, who is my mother's sister, my mother's brother, my mother's brother married Dr. Mtukudzi's sister. That's how he was my sekuru. And so I knew him quite a lot. I was born in, he was there, and he was part of the family and that kind of thing. So they were very influential in everything I did, in my decisions, in getting into the business of music. I used to bounce a lot of ideas, on them and ask them, for advice and things like that. So I believe they taught me as much as I needed to learn from them, about the business of music. Because I was also a bass player, I didn't really learn anything musical from them. I didn't learn how to play from them. I didn't learn any notes from them. But I learned a lot about the business of music from them, which is something else that's totally different. The creative side is one thing. The business of music is another thing. And I learned a lot of the business of music from Dr. Mtukudzi and Dr. Masekela. And I'm always going to be, forever grateful for that. Yeah, it's a huge loss every day. I miss them every day. I miss the jokes. They had like huge, amazing sense of humor. I miss their jokes. I miss spending time with them. I miss traveling with them. I miss eating, having lunch, and spending time with them. It's not for the camera. Wow. I think Yuma Segela and Dr. Mtukudzi, they were different. They were literally different in character, black and white, but they were the same. I don't know if that makes sense. It was like kind of yin and yang. So one is very quiet, very chilled, doesn't say much unless there's something crazy to say. While you, on the other hand, is crazy. He's like on the go. He's witty. He's like, there. So, but they used to complement each other as friends, and as artists, and as as father figures. They were just. I would learn different things and different aspects from them. So it's something that I definitely miss. Like I said earlier on, I'm glad I got a chance to work with both of them the way I did, and I'm glad I got to learn from them as much as I did. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and it's something to be able to say that you worked with two icons like that. And having to also be able to work with other artists that I'm working with today, it's a privilege. I'm still working with Brian K. I work with Mokumba, with my partner Marcus Gora. He does management for Mokumba. Mokumba is a very unique band, and I think because they are unique, that's what makes them special. With anything really, it's important that you find your identity and you stick to your identity and you push that. And because when you stand out, or when you stand amongst people, you stand out because you're unique. You stand out because there's something different that you have to offer, whether it's music or whatever else that you're doing. If you need to be able to know your identity, know yourself, and push that instead of trying to be like James, John, or Tawanda. But that's the only way I can describe the band Mokumba, because they're a very unique act. They're very much in touch with their roots. They're very much in touch with who they are as Zimbabweans. They're very much in touch with their mother tongues, which is a lot of languages that they speak and sing in. And there's no compromise in who they are. So when they present themselves on the different world stages, they present just that, their uniqueness, their authenticity as Africans. And that's why they are so popular out there, because you won't find anything like Mokumba. You won't find any act like Mokumba anywhere else. I guess it's the same thing that made Dr. Mtukudzi popular, because there can only be one Tuku. When you watch his performance, it's only Tuku that can give you that kind of performance. It's the same thing with Mokumba. It's the same thing with many other acts that you find that are unique out there. There's only one Yosondo. There's only one Angelique Kidjo. There's only one Michael Jackson. So it's something that makes a lot of artists successful. That something is what a lot of people need to focus on and say, Kuti, I am so and so, and I'm gonna stick to it, and you perfect that, which is whatever it is that is you. And so that's why you find that band so amazing, and that's why they're welcomed all over the world. I never got the opportunity to attend that festival. Even though Dr. Mtukudzi performed there, I had other business engagements, unfortunately, so I couldn't make it for the festival. But so I was always keen to perform for Zimbabweans outside of Zim when he got an opportunity to, because obviously people miss home, and he brought a bit of home with him every time he got on stage. And some people haven't been back home in 20 years. Some people have been home in 10 years. So when they see Tuku on stage, it's as if they've gone back home for a little bit, even if it's for an hour. And I think the work that Mkomafred is doing out there is really important and critical for a lot of people, that the Zimbabweans that go to those events, and also the Zimbabwean artists that perform there. It's like a reunion, everybody in the UK gets together, and the artists also get to perform for their countrymen. It's an amazing thing, and it's something that's encouraged, and I think that it's initiatives like that need for us to continue to support. So Jacaranda Music Festival, we started it 3 years ago, so this year would have been its 4th year. It's a festival that we have every October, the first weekend of October, in Harare, and we celebrate the people of Harare, the music, and the city. So because we do it in October, the Jacaranda trees are starting to bloom, and already right now the Jacaranda trees are blooming. That's why we named it Jacaranda Music Festival, because of the time that it happens in Harare in Zimbabwe. So that's a festival that I started. with about 13,000 people last year, and because of COVID this year, we possibly may not have it at all, but we may have a virtual one. So it's a festival that I think has become one of the most notable festivals in Zimbabwe right now, in a short space of time, and we're super grateful for the people that attend and the artists that make this festival a success, and yeah, it's something that we hope is going to grow, and annually we can be able to produce it. And again, like I said, it's produced by Ngoma no Osho. That's the production company that produces Jacaranda Music Festival. A whole bunch of very gifted and talented people that work with me on that festival. And yeah, I guess my interest in music, obviously, I wanted to be a professional bass player. I don't play anymore, but I started playing Celebration Church when I was 13. So I played for Celebration Church for 17 years, up until I was about 30. And I played with Pastor Bonnie and Prince Mafukidze, Kudzai Sevenzo, Andrew Bede was our music director and producer. So I worked with those people for a long time. So I've got a very strong, if you want to call it that, roots in music, but mostly gospel music. So that's what I used to play. But as time went on, I got into music in a different aspect, which is what I do now, which is production for live events and things like that. But my history is actually me as a bass player.